So good afternoon, hello and welcome everybody to this first webinar of ACETECH NetworX Series 2020. On behalf of the entire management at ACETECH, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to each of you for taking out time and gracing this platform with your presence. Team ACETECH would also like to thank architect Seema Puri for curating this wonderful session in the network series. ACETECH is extremely happy to introduce this platform and intends to organize more sessions with an aim to get the whole industry together, like we've been doing on the largest physical platform of the country, ACETECH. I would now like to introduce our esteemed panel for the session. Mohit, are we there? There's some problem.
We're there. No.
Okay, so my screen got blank. I don't know. So, our moderator for the session, architect Seema Puri, principal architect Seza, Mr. Surendra Hirandani, founder and managing director, House of Hirandani, Mr. Bamandarani, chairman and managing director, Rustamji Group, architect Sanjay Puri, principal architect, Sanjay Puri Architects, architect Nilab Nagar, senior associate, architect Hafiz Contractor, architect Santha Gaur, director, Infinity Design Studio, Mr. Sandeep Somani, chairman, Briloka Limited. I guess Mr. Mandewala hasn't joined in so far, so we'll wait for him. And so I'd also like to thank our series sponsor, Shinex India, for all its continued support. We have a quick AV of about 15 seconds of Shinex, which I'd like to play. Mohit, if you can have the AV quickly.
Shinex glass mosaics, the blend of art and technology.
So, thank you once again. I'd like to request Mr. Gandhi, our chairman, to address the panel for 2 minutes before we start the session.
Good afternoon to all my friends, esteemed dignitaries on the panel and viewers joining us from all over the world. I welcome you all to the opening session of ACETECH NetworX Series 2020. As the world is going through a serious pandemic, the business and operations across the globe have come to a standstill, leaving us to adapt to new means of communication and networking. And virtual has become very active than ever. And as we make inroads into the new normal in coming times, ACETECH, being the largest networking platform of the country, understands the current situation. And we are proud to bring together the industry through this unique webinar series called ACETECH NetworX. It's a platform that will evoke thoughts of some top leaders in architecture and construction space, combining it with some of our manufacturing stalwarts of the country. Every upcoming webinar will draw some thought-provoking views from different industry leaders and infuse positivity in this much needed time of crisis. This panel stalwarts have come together today to discuss on various topics. We'll have an interesting information exchange in terms of new sense of design in residential spaces, resuming construction, ways to expedite process, maybe new product development post-COVID. We're glad to have over 1,500 registrations for today's webinar. And without further delay, I wish you all a very good session ahead. Thank you, Seema, for putting this together with Viraj and team. Thank you.
Thank you, Sumit. That was nice. And yes, this is our first session. So let's begin with a bang. Let's see a little video clip that was sent by somebody on this panel to me.
सारा देश जाने हैं कि आज सारा देश जाने हैं कि आज बदलाव जरूरी ही नहीं बल्कि निश्चित होवे पर जैसो गांधी जी ने कहो है कि जो बदलाव आप देश में देखना चाहो वो खुद में भी होना जरूरी होवे। आज मैं वो सुर छेड़ू हूँ जो इससे पहले कभी ना छेड़ो और वो गाना गाऊं हूँ जो इससे पहले कभी ना गुनगुनायो।
Change is constant. Change is inevitable. Change is immeasurable. Change, be the change. Yeah. Change is the game, you need a new mind frame. Stop following the world and be the change. Drive the change, write the change, just block the change. Change, be the change.
So I think with that clip, we all understand what the topic, of course, is about. But the one thing that I think we've all had in the last 2 months sitting at home is an abundance of time. So much time to think and reflect upon, maybe our work strategies, how we can improve it, and hopefully we're all going to be back at work very, very soon. And I think we should all go back in a more positive mind frame because we've had a lot of negativity to deal with. And honestly, what better positive mind frame and what better way to charge us than to hear these amazing 7 awe-inspiring panelists who I have with me today. And we will start off with the man in London, Mr. Surendra Hirandani, who I've had the pleasure of knowing for more than 30 years from our first days at Hafiz Contractor. He is humble, he is friendly, and he is a fountain of knowledge. He can discuss the intricacies of the copper plumbing with as much ease as he can probably discuss the lyrics of the number on the chart. So here's over to you, Surendra. We want to hear how it all began and your amazing story.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sweet words. Okay, so I'm pretty old, so 65, so lots to talk about, but I'll try and keep it compact. Started off as an entrepreneur in the late 70s, age of 21, 22, and crazy, wanted to do business. My father was a doctor, no background, no money, where, just whatever my dad as a doctor in those days could give me. And, passion and hard work was the only thing I had in those days. I just had to succeed. But by 1985, I was disgusted with myself. I actually used to get nightmares at night that why the hell didn't I become a doctor and migrate to the US? I would have been much, much better off because I was just dissatisfied with what I was doing, the product. I was there working on Sundays, Saturdays, name it. And just the result was just not there in the product. I had not traveled in those days, really. People never traveled in those days. You went by a SOTC tour maybe. But, but I did read a lot, and I knew the world through reading. Magazines and books, I always loved to read. And I decided that this is, I have to correct this. And so I did start reading, into construction. In those days, 85 to 90 was really the time when I focused on the civil engineering side. And those days, the British Council Library at Nariman Point, it was the largest British Council library in the world. And you'd be amazed that the kind of books I found over there, not just engineering books, but even foreman's books. And I used to go there, make copies of those books and just pour through them. What are the best practices in the world? What is, the right way to do things? And along the way, of course, I met mentors like Mr. Anthony Remedios, and I had consultants, Memfra, others, and, who were there to help me. And we had training programs, and so much so that we mapped ourselves with all the English-speaking world codes of practices and standards. So, I couldn't read the European code, in those days, the German code as an example. So, because we speak English. And so I went through the Australian, the Singapore, the UK, and the US codes of practice and standards. And I started creating my own standards. So we made actually, and we still have these standards for all aspects of construction, which we keep updating. And we, by 1989, we had, brought ourselves on par with the rest of the world, and I was satisfied with that. Of course, there's a lot of value engineering, because You know, your costs are so, you have to keep them so low. So, I mean, our team, we developed, you know, within our team, thanks to the team, we could make better concrete, even today, with a single bag concrete mixer than a ready-mix concrete plant. A ready-mix, I'm more skeptical about a ready-mix concrete plant, what it gives us, then what confidence I have if I have a single bag mixer on the site. But of course, in
large
today's,
projects becomes
in today, because of labor shortages. And so in this period, of course, we did innovative things in those days. Was in the late 80s. We were the first to do 100% sewage recycling. We had to struggle. The industry was very primitive in those days. It was not fashionable to talk about it. You know, environmental issues came up after 2000, and we set up these, you know, to find the technology, and again, value engineering is very important. From the 90s, I would say I shifted the focus. Shifted means added the focus to architecture. And working with great people like Hafiz and his team, working with, you know, and of course, reading a lot myself, and, you know, understanding design, understanding architecture is what we developed a lot. So much so, I remember I spent so much time at Hafiz's office, I used to get mail there. The people used to think I'm the staff member there. So,
yeah, every day at 5:30 we saw you there.
Got mail over there in the office. So then in the early 90s, you know, I was fed up with, for example, with GI plumbing. Even the best interior designers in the country would tell me, no, GI plumbing is good. Don't mess with it. It's the best thing, you know, for Bombay weather. That's the best, you know, plumbing. So, and I was determined because I knew that, you know, I couldn't guarantee anything to the customer. Within 6 months, the hot water pipe would leak. And it was, you know, and we always had that thing that any customer, any complaint, we are going to attend to it free of cost. So with Indian Copper Development Center in those days, we brought in copper plumbing into the country. Our first project, Lake Castle, we implemented with copper plumbing in 91. And later on, of course, the plastics came in the late 90s, and which we brought in. We worked with India Gypsum to bring in gypsum vermiculite plaster. We were the first to introduce it. All your, you know, plasters cracking and things falling, all was eliminated. We worked with chemical waterproofing people those days in the 90s. So a lot of innovation came about as we went on. And then in the late 90s, I started focusing on interiors and urban design. Interiors is something, frankly, I'm not as good in colors and other things, but understanding what trends are running in the world, you know, it's whether it's a selection of your kitchen cabinet or whether it's, entrance halls or these things, you know, they're still important that you put in your inputs. And urban planning became my favorite hobby those days, and it still is. And if you see our projects, what I'm really proud about is that we are probably, run very exemplary multi-use projects, starting with Powai, Thane, now we're doing in Chennai, other places, is that we created a township which is the essence is, the human being. And in these townships, for me, the essence is the pavement, the footpath, not the street. I think the worst invention of the 20th century is the private automobile. So I still believe in that, and that's how I focus on my projects. Going into come up to speed, come up to I think 99 to 2005. 2004 was the golden period for real estate in India. Things were very good. Urban Land Ceiling Act had just been abolished, and things were moving. Everything was moving in a very, reasoned way. Come 2010 to 2015, I think was the worst period. Hyperinflation and labor shortages. All the problems you see in the real estate industry, I attribute to those days, because in 2009 and 10, developers across the country sold at a fixed price. And then by the time they completed the project, cost went far beyond the cost of land and construction. So, and then it became a vicious circle, because neither the bureaucracy nor the courts helped out in resolving this issue, and cascaded into this over-regulation which you have today. But that was also but the time when we learned the sense of risk management. As I said, when I started, I had no money, and we used to borrow money at 21% interest, payable 3 months in advance.
Great.
Not something you can do today. And so from 2010 to 2014, I would say my focus is reducing debt and controlling it, that you only take debt on receivables and not on anything, speculative.
So we'll have to now, maybe move on, and we're going to come back to you to ask you some more questions. And I think the next we'd like to see what Mr. Baman Irani has to say. He seems to have gone off. He's back. So Baman, you started in 1996, and now it's 2020. So just 24 years and this meteoric rise to fame. I think your first building was 25,000 square feet, Sanjay said something like that. And now you have 22 million square feet in the pipeline. Please tell us what inspired you to become a builder and reach this state today.
Whatever inspired me, I, like Surendra, want to say, I wish I had not been there. But no, very quickly, thank you very much, Seema. I think I'll give you my story in about 3 minutes, right? I think I came from the school of hard knocks. So, learned everything by just walking around. I met a lot of good people, I should say. We were out to sell our first piece of property somewhere in Bandra, and I met with most of the developers at that point in time. What I realized is a lot of development at that point of time was taking place at the whims and fancies of most of the people around. There was really no structure. I'm not saying I met all of them. There must have been very good developers. And, I had the opportunity of meeting those who were in the unorganized part of the business. And then I met up with some of the organized ones, like the Rahejas, and, we've always heard about the Hiranandanis. So I kind of picked out my idols, and like Karna of the Mahabharata, I think I learned from everybody without actually going to them. So I used to go to sites. I used to go to Vijay Vadva's sites because we'd heard that was excellent, and we used to go and see the quality of work out there. We used to go to Ahuja's sites and see the work out there, because at that point in time he had made a swimming pool on one of his terraces. It was extremely interesting, and I think there was a lot of energy in the team. From chairman to watchman, I remember there were 4 of us. And like I keep telling young peers who come into the business today, it is they who keep on teaching us the business every single time. So at that point of time, I remember we had come up with a policy, chairman to watchman, one price you cannot negotiate at Rustomji. And that worked out quite well for us. Though initially all the brokers that were involved in the trade always said that, this will never work, and some banch chhod has got to be done, and you need to kind of take a call on your consumers. I think we've built on this one principle that the customer is always right and the customer is king. And after that, Steve Jobs, mentioned that your complaining customer is actually your consultant, treat him very, very well. So we've kind of kept with that mindset. Even today, when we have a design meet or a board meet, we always have one chair, which is called the customer's chair. And we keep our brand custodian, Kaizad, sitting in that chair. And you have to believe me, the democracy in the room is so high that he can actually tell us, of course, we're all very respectful of each other, but he can actually tell us that, listen, this is not in the customer's interest and we would not be comfortable with you doing it. And that's worked extremely well at Rustomji. I think even today, we are happy that the customer comes first. Yes, we've made mistakes. Yes, we've learned. Yes, we'll keep learning. An open mindset. Today, we have some very nice teams with us. I've worked with I've worked with most of the architects, you know, and I've continued my association with a few. And it's been an amazing learning curve, and I'm looking forward to it going forward. Thank you.
Great, great, great. That was nice. That was rapid, like a rapid fire round. Yeah. I think you finished in like what, 2 minutes or 1.5 minutes? Yeah. Anyway, moving on. Sandeep ji, Mr. Sandeep Somani, we realized that you actually changed the face of HSIL from being a sanitary ware manufacturer to an entire home solution provider. Please shed some light and, you know, help us to understand how you think so big and how you manage so many parameters. Over to you, Mr. Sandeep Somani.
Thank you, Seema. So it's been a very exciting journey. You know, for all entrepreneurs, you know, they have their plus, they have their minus. Some years are good, some years are poor. You know, I was born into a family business, but my grandfather was not in industry. He was in trade. He actually migrated from Rajasthan because he couldn't make a living, decent living there. And he then moved on to Calcutta, where he started a jute trading business. So when my father and all got educated and got their degrees, they decided that they'll get out of trading, and they had aspirations to manufacture. And that's when they, in the 50s, so among the two people who have spoken, we are actually very old, relatively. So we are 60 years this year. So my father then decided to leave Calcutta, which at that time was not an easy thing to do as a young lad. He came to Delhi to set up industry. He found the industry that he thought would be interesting, and he got into the ceramic business, and he made the company the largest player in ceramics in the country. So frankly, by the time I got educated and I got into the family business around 1985, which seems like a million years ago as of now, you know, the business was good. My dad had built very good foundations, very strong foundations. And as a young lad, I entered into the business. Soon after I entered into the business, you know, we got an opportunity to acquire a business in that time, Andhra Pradesh. It was a competitor of ours, which was not doing well. It was financially mismanaged and technically mismanaged. So as a young lad, I went to do the due diligence along with some of our accountants at that time, and we decided to buy that business. We bought it, and then Dad told me, and that's the best thing he did. He said, you move, you look after that business. So as a young boy of 24 years old, I went to Hyderabad and spent most of my time there trying to revive this business. And I think if I reflect back, that was the greatest learning of my life, because I was alone in an area which I was unfamiliar with. The people I was not familiar with, they were all new people. They were not the people who were in our existing offices. And, you know, it was, I think, 2 years of great learning in how to turn around a business and make it successful. And that plant, coincidentally, today is India's largest ceramic plant.
Wow.
So out of that learnings, you know, my confidence significantly increased in what the real world has to offer. And then we set our course, you know, sometime in the 90s and 2000s, we decided that the business we were in, although it was a very good business and we were market leaders, and we still are, there's a limit to what you can grow, and there was no Swachh Bharat Abhiyan at that time. So the total ceramic market in India was really small, you know, and I had aspirations to grow. So we decided that we must look into new areas and new opportunities. And we did a whole series of acquisitions. And based on this earlier acquisition of this company called Krishna Ceramics, which had, you know, significantly improved my confidence, I was sure that we could buy new companies which were not doing well, and in a reasonable time frame turn them around. And I think that is what we've done. We've made a string of acquisitions. We've also gone into new businesses and been quite successful. So we have a diverse range of portfolios. We are, of course, India's largest producer of ceramics by the brand name Hindware. We are also the fastest growing pipes company, which we started 2 years ago. We make CPVC, PVC pipes under the brand name TrueFlow. We are in glass, which is a part of the business which is B2B. So that's not normally known. We melt, for example, 1,600 tons of container glass a day. It's an ecologically friendly packing material. So, God's been kind. And I think, the few lessons, if I may be permitted, that I have learned, and I have, I keep them like the Holy Grail, is always surround you with good people. Always surround yourself with good people. An entrepreneur must know where his strength lies and where he's weak. I think if you can select the right people for areas where you're weak, you'll always be successful. So we have a very empowered, every business is now run by a CEO who are quite driven, sometimes more driven than I am. And, we make sure that wherever I consider myself weak, I hire much more intelligent people than I am. And I have no qualms about it. So for example, in certain areas, there are people that I hire are far smarter. I'm probably a nursery graduate in front of them. And there's no qualms about it. And I tell them that you have to be far smarter than I am because I'm weak in this area. So I think, that's one foundation. Second, always be true to your customer. I think Bowman also hinted at that. Always make sure that the customer is first. And now I know it's a cliche, everybody does it, but 30 years ago, in the days of shortage, nobody used to care about customers. Always make sure that you service the requirement of the customer and exceed his expectations and please him. So that's the second ethos we followed. Third, always think big, bring technologically advanced plants, make the best quality that you can, which Mr. Nihirandanani also mentioned about, and be innovative as a company. Always be ahead of the curve rather than be behind the curve. Always look at innovation and how you can make your customer's life easier and more, pleasing.
So what about Briloka, Mr. Somani? What about Briloka, which is a new venture of yours?
So actually, we split our company because we have multiple businesses in the same company, and it was getting very difficult for the analysts to analyze it. So Briloka is India's largest producer of ceramics. It's the second largest producer of taps and showers, again under the brand name Hindware, and the fastest growing pipes company in the brand name TrueFlow. We have another company called Somani Home Innovation Limited, which is the fastest growing consumer products company in the country. And then HSIL, which is the original mother company, is the second largest producer of packaging material in the country. So I'm very clear. Jack Welch once said, either be among the top 3 or get out of that business. You have no business being number 10, 12 in a business. You'll always be a weakling. We follow that to the core. Where we are not successful, we take a write-off, we exit that business. There's no prestige about it. You can't be successful in everything in life.
Thank you.
Focus on where you can be.
Thank you. Thank you. And we shall move to another top entrepreneur, Mr. Rajesh Mandewala. Please, Mr. Mandewala, please make it our privilege to understand how you have made Wellspun the textile giant that it is today. And while I was reading up, I also read that you have so many other verticals. Of course, you have flooring, you have line pipes, you have coils, you seem to have infrastructure. I mean, it seems huge. How do you manage it all, and how did this all start, really?
Well, Seema, first of all, thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure being on this webinar. And Surendra, you looked this super fit. Bowman, this bearded look is not working on you, let me tell you. To those chiknojre. Your clean shaven look is better for you. Well, thank you very much. So Seema, I belong to this a middle class family, and this had very humble backgrounds, and this started off straight out of college with this deprived mindset. This grew up being deprived of many things that my friends and relatives could have, and so had this big fire in the belly. And God got kind, put me in touch with this maverick entrepreneur, BK Goenka, who's also the chairman of the Wellspun group of companies. And this both of us started out of both of us were out of college, and so our journey began this in the mid 80s. And we got off starting with the textile business, very small. This boutique kind of a business did about 40-50 lakhs in revenue in those years, but I think our ambition got ahead of us, and by the early 90s, when we were turning around about 2-3 crores in revenue, this, we put a couple of consultants in place, this helping us identify this, what was an export-oriented this business that we could get in. So those were the days when gold was pledged by India, and so we discovered that towel was a good business to get in. Got this started on towels. This was in 1994, and again, so as I said, the ambition got better of us, and we had this maverick, this entrepreneur leading us, and so by 98. This also discovered that pipes could get exported out of India, and so also started the pipe business. This was in 98 or thereabouts. And in those days, this young people, so this stock market, this was very very welcoming, and so we came out with an IPO, and it got this humongously oversubscribed, collected 50-60 crores. In those days, that was big sum of money. And forgot that this raising money was not the only thing. You still had to run your businesses. So this brilliantly ground both the businesses to almost dust by the end of the 90s, and got ourselves into a situation where the debt was so much that the interest was actually coming to about 40% of our revenues. And that's when reality struck us, and that's when we actually got down to running businesses seriously. And this by the early 2000 we had to restructure our debt with the bank. So this didn't have enough money to actually pay the banks in time, and had to restructure our both our textile and pipe company, and then got down to serious business. This we were always invested in fantastic technology. Our businesses were okay, and then focused completely on the customer, just like Sandeep said. This Surendra said, Oman said, so this put the customer in the center of everything that we did. This brought execution excellence, and this always continued to invest this in cutting edge technology, where where we said this, we have to be the best in the world. The aspirations were always global. So any business that we built, it was the global market in mind, and that we have to be globally competitive. So very quickly, this in the next 3-4 years turned around the textile business, the pipe business, and this got them to become very, very profitable. And so one thing led to the other, and this in 2007-8, we realized most of our revenues and profits were coming from the international markets. So decided to look at the infrastructure space. So started building roads, and in those days also acquired a couple of businesses which didn't work out very well for us. One of them was a stake in Leighton, and another company from Gujarat. End of the day, this exited, but this kept the good part from the infra business. So we continue to make roads. As we speak, we are doing about 5-6 roads, all aggregating to about 7,000-8,000 crores of execution. And this went on with that, and we had our shares of ups and downs, and but continued to remain positive, continued to remain focused on the customers, continued to remain focused on the markets, execution, technology. And the baby in the group now is the floorings business that we have set up. So this business is, again, so we put in about 1,100 crores on a vertically integrated this facility, which has just about begun. So the goal is to do alternative floorings, do the carpet tiles, which nobody else does in India. So this almost all carpet tiles which India consumes is imported. Have invested into what you call this luxury vinyl tiles. We call them SPCs. So this is an alternate click and lock tile, where we could actually take the tile, bring it into your home or into your client's home, to better phrase it, and install it on an existing floor, get out of your house in a day or two, make it painless without dhul kankad in your house. We are also doing wall-to-wall carpets, which go into this hotels, auditoriums, restaurants, and so on and so forth. And also this artificial grass, which you could use for landscaping, and this also, let's say this to build this sports stadium. So this is the baby in the group. All of us are very excited. This is one of the first this direct-to-consumer business that the group has promoted, and so we are all very excited with this. Promising, let's say, this prospects, but I guess a lot of work to be done, and this lot of things to learn from all you August people. So that's a little bit about our journey.
That's great. Thank you so much. And we're going to move on to the architects now, and maybe ladies first, Santha. So please tell us what drove you to design and what inspired you to take up architecture. As we all know, it's fairly difficult,
It's difficult, but it's fun. So I think the culprit behind me joining architecture was my dad. So like how all parents, we expose our children to, something that they would eventually take on as a profession. So my dad happened to be a civil engineer. And he used to come home with these big blueprints and all and study them. And I thought he was doing something very important. And this was way. I started studying them. I understood that मैं पढ़ सकती हूँ drawings. And by 10th, I knew what all FSI was, how buildings were constructed in Bombay. He took me to a few.
Hello.
Hello.
Engineering is a bit boring, like think about this, you have an aptitude for this. So that was a culprit, but I think he made a very good decision, and I'm happy, though it's difficult, I'm really happy with, how he kind of maybe pushed me into architecture. It was a good thing. So that was my entry into architecture, for good or for worse, for the profession, for me, whatever.
Great. And shall we move on to...
Yeah, that was a small thing. I'm the youngest, so I don't have a lot to talk. So I guess that was a short.
That's good. No, it's nice. It's nice to be short, sweet, and to the point. Yeah. And now we'll move to my inspiration to join architecture, which of course came from my dear brother Sanjay, who I would say at the young age that he is, he's pretty much done every kind of work that there is, I think, in the field of architecture, and won innumerable accolades, both internationally as well as nationally. And of course, I know how your brain ticks, Sanjay, but I think you should give us a sneak peek into how you always manage to stay on top. Let's hear it from you. For the 2,000 viewers who are keen on knowing what goes on in that mind.
Actually, the best thing is, it's all about the experience there. So I joined Hafiz when I was 18 years old on my 18th birthday, before having joined College of Architecture. By the time I went to architecture college, I had already done working drawings, gone to housing sites, managed interior sites, knew every single thing there was to costing, BOQ and all of that. And then all these people in college, the seniors are telling me, they said like, it's very stupid. How are you working in first year? I said, I'm not working first year. I was working from before first year. And they're saying, it'll spoil your mind. It'll make you think in a certain way. But that's all bullshit, because at the end of the day, in this field, it is all about the experience. The more you see, the more you understand, the more you can do. And just because you are well informed in all of that you've done, you are able to take decisions faster and not go back to them and not revisit them and not change them. So I think that is the key. You experience as much as you can, maximum possible. I mean, for example, just a simple thing. First time I went nuts. I had 2 days. I took 38 trains because I wanted to see some 27 or 28 buildings one by one, all of them within those 2 days in that limited period. And it was raining. It was bad. I mean, like, we went crazy. And first time in Paris, just imagine. But I had this book and I had these buildings by Frank Borel, by so many people who people generally don't know. Everybody knows the famous ones. But these were like buildings in the 13th arrondissement, inside in one corner somewhere, a tiny space where the guy made something brilliant. So I went crazy. So in short, it's all about how much experience you gain in everything. Working, seeing, experiencing. And because of all of that, you can just do something much faster and in a shorter period of time. And so you can do more in a better way.
Great. And now over to Nilav. Nilav, you work with one of the biggest, most successful architecture firms in our country. I mean, you probably work on designs that I think most of us architects only dream of, yeah? How's it been so many years that you've been there? How's the journey been? And, how do you feel today? having accomplished so much?
I think I'm just starting out. Even after having done so much, you feel that you just started out as if yesterday. I think this is the key to our office. You are always to feel young and as if it is you have no tomorrow and you have to start working today. That's the thing. So that's the key to our office. So I'll just brief you about how it all happened, in the sense that I was born in South India. I grew up in Calcutta. I studied in Delhi, and I work in Bombay, and I work all over India. So
natural integration, yeah.
So that's how it started. And see, the thing is, which I think about architecture is that we have a sense of empathy and tolerance, and something which that's something which I learned from my school, which was in Bharati Vidya Bhavan in Delhi. And then in our 10th class, we had this socially useful productive work chapter, in which we were made to work with the Braille students, like work with the blind, and then we had to write their exams for them, the 10th class exams and all that. So I learned Braille. And then subsequently, after the 84 riots, we were asked to meet and interact with the victims of the 84 riots. So it's kind of get to know what society is all about. So that was something which was a great learning experience and very humbling experience, to say that you understand the society in a totality which you wouldn't otherwise when you are just simply going home, back and forth and things like that. So that was a great experience that I learned. Then I joined School of Planning and Architecture in '86. And our college, thankfully, at that batch of ours, I would say, I think we had one of the best teachers that the school had for the duration of that whatever thing. And most of us who have graduated in 1991 have become quite successful in our fields all across India. And that is all because, I would say, one of the best teachers we had. We had Revati Kamath, who taught us mud architecture. We had Anil Lal, who taught us geodesic and exploring the possible of modular construction the way it was. And then we had teachers who taught us housing and urban design. In our school, there has always been a sense of purpose and an urban design and rational thinking, respect for materials, form, composition. Those are kind of things which kind of get instilled in your blood, and it carries you through the entire career of yours. And then we had lots of site visits and NASA trips and everything else. And I loved traveling. So I remember in second year or something, I clocked something like 25,000 kilometers in 1 year. And that's the amount of travel I used to do to see new places, see new cities, see this thing. And that has continued through in my career all the time. So visits to Louis Kahn, for example, Ahmedabad, then we went to Laurie Baker's sites then we went to Auroville and things like that. So see different kinds of architecture which happened all across the country. So, and then there was a turning point in JJ NASA in 1990, I think JJ NASA was there. And there was a young architect who was passionately encouraging students to excel and explore the new paradigm of architecture. And in January of 1991, I found myself at 29 Bank Street. And rest, as you say.
Yes, that was nice. Yeah. So, I mean, moving on to another question now, since we've heard everyone's story and it's like brings to the table some different thoughts here. Do you feel like, we are all communicating here, right? On a normal day, we were all at office. Would we really be in this communication platform? Surendra sitting in London, Mr. Somani sitting in Delhi, all of us busy builders and entrepreneurs. Nobody's going to have the time of day. So do you feel that the pandemic has fostered a renewed sense of community and maybe therefore communication through all this communication, maybe a new sense of community? Baman, I heard you on that NIPCO chat where you were discussing that maybe the builders will require to collaborate with each other. Maybe the way forward is collaborations. What do you think? What are your views on that?
So it's not only the way forward. In my mind, it's always been collaboration. You have to collaborate, right? Just to give you a saying, if you want to run fast, you run alone. But if you want to go far, you kind of, walk with people. So it is my view that going forward, people will only realize this a lot better. And, maybe Surendra with his special sets of abilities and skills is someone that I'll call on more often, or at least call on and then, understand what are the projects that we could do together, where he could add value, I could bring in some value. We would have architects also kind of sharing data openly. I read somewhere the Japanese automobile industry, whenever there is something new that they come up with, they actually have an obligation to share it across the platform. After that, whatever smaller changes are being done on it, is where they kind of have their individual, skill sets to take it forward. I think it's important for people to understand that there is a lot to be done, especially in the housing world. There is a lot to be done, especially in India. I mean, go by any estimate, whether the government of India says 6 crores or whether some other reports reach 9 crore homes. There are people who are homeless. We can give them a better life. And I think it's very, very essential for all of us to put our skills together, work 24/7 if that is possible, and create the future for our generations to come. Because Surendra, today you're in London. I mean, life is beautiful. It's a great city, right? Created so many years before our time. And till today, it manages to hold its own. Likewise, I think Mumbai has got a vibrancy. MMR has got the potential. We need to kind of get the best done for our children. We owe it to them. So let's come together, let's collaborate, and let's keep the spirit going.
Great, thank you. And my next question on collaboration is a slightly interesting one, which I want to ask actually Sanjay. Just for instance, Sanjay, imagine now we're collaborating and you're going to maybe, would you be open to, if there was this amazing new museum complex to be done, okay? But you were asked that you require to collaborate with another architect to do this project. Would you be open to collaborating for an interesting project like that? Because, your design sensibilities are fairly bold and are quite different. So would you be willing to collaborate?
Yeah, of course I'd be willing to collaborate. Why not? See, there are, so many different aspects to design. So if there's somebody who's good in some aspects, it'd be great to collaborate. Of course, one has to match wavelengths and see how it goes. But yeah, I'm open to collaborating.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. And Surendra, what are your views on it? Would you like to collaborate? I mean, you guys are of course so big, but
it's all. I mean, I'm talking from the business angle. It's always business is all about collaboration, all about people, and you're collaborating with your team, your people, the consultants you work with, and of course partners. Yes, always difficult to find a good partner, but. I mean, the people and the consultants and other people are all your collaborators.
Of course. But like I'm saying, you would be happy to collaborate with other builders too, right? I mean, why not? Of course. And what about the entrepreneurs, Mr. Manviwala, Mr. Somani? What are your views on it? I mean, already y'all are running such large portfolios. Do you think that going forward, you may want to collaborate? Maybe you may collaborate with Mr. Somani. I don't know. I think the sky is the limit today.
Well, this is one big thing this lockdown has taught us, and which is to collaborate. Of course, with our company, it is a core value. So, we are always looking out for partnerships and so on and so forth. So it will be our honor, let's say, to collaborate with somebody as distinguished as Mr. Somani. And you know what? Look, this even for the vaccine, if you look, Seema, the best companies, the fiercest competitors in the world are actually collaborating with each other to beat the timeline. So, so we have to learn, and this even within our own group, we have, let's say, 7 businesses, and each business was run independently during this period. We discovered there were so many common things that one business could collaborate with the other. So people level, company level, organization level, I think this collaboration will significantly improve world over. And I for sure am a big believer of collaborations.
Fantastic. What about you, Mr. Somani? You going forward, collaborations the only way forward?
Well, I wouldn't say it's the only way forward, but it certainly is the preferred way forward, because you're de-risking yourself, your balance sheet. You're also pooling in strengths of multiple partners, so the outcome will be faster. And I think in general, the 60 days sitting around at home doing nothing has really put many earlier perspectives of life in a new light. And I think people are a lot more open to partnering with others, and I think it's a win-win for all concerned.
Great. Nilav, you guys are like what, 600 people or 700 people now? I'm wondering whether you all will collaborate or you all will have to reduce size here. Tell us, what do you think? What do you think? Yeah?
Stopped counting a long time ago. Yeah.
I think they'll start acquiring all of us.
Yeah, I think
started
so.
fighting on us.
No. So now let's have.
We have to do a ghar wapsi to get all our alumni back, I think. And
sounds good. Now we have very little time left on the panel today. So now my last question is, there have been so many people, they're telling me there's some 2,000 people who are listening and etc. etc. So let's say, what inspiring thought do we want to leave our audience with? And for that, I want Surendra, you to start with. What inspiring thought do you want to leave? I think there are students also on this panel, and I mean, there's so many people all across here.
Well, you said to do it in one line, so
yeah, that's fine. It's good.
I would say the thought is really pertains to business and profession, not just the opposite of what you would do in love. Embrace change through innovation and manage your risk.
Okay, fantastic. Super, great. And Santha, what kind of line would you like to inspire our viewers with?
You're on mute.
You'll have to put your mic on, Santha.
Sorry. So,
people
think that there's something very negative happening here. Can you hear?
Yeah, now we can hear. Now we can hear.
So I really think that this is a wonderful opportunity. We should take it as an opportunity and actually relook at our entire lives as to how we are going to go ahead, how we are going to go and manage our lives, whether it is students or whether it is business. Look inwards, take it as, to find out your strengths, what you're good at. So I don't think there is anything negative about the pandemic. Just be inspired that kuch bura nahi hua hai, kuch acha hi hone wala hai. So take it in that positive sense, and I'm sure something fantastic will happen out of it if you look inwards.
Great. Mr. Somani, what are your views? We want one inspiring thought or one sentence from you which can inspire the people who are listening on this panel.
So I think whatever you do in life, you must do with passion and zeal.
Great. And Mr. Mandrewala, what would you like to leave our audience with?
Well, this be a student all your life, always learn, unlearn, relearn. And in this pandemic, we got a lot of time to do that. And if you have to fail, you might as well fail fast, because this failure is your biggest this teacher. So learn from it, fail again, learn from it. So keep the learning journey going.
Great. And Sanjay, you're looking all around. What are your thoughts?
What I've learned during this pandemic is that, with limited resources, you are still able to work, and therefore, in the future, we can work a much reduced carbon footprint in every wake of life. A, and B is, I've understood that it is very, very important for everybody concerned to somehow create policy decisions that ensure that there are migrant working spaces built into all cities.
Thank you.
So that this does not happen again.
I completely agree.
That's all.
Nila, what do you want to share? One nice pearl of wisdom from you here.
A long one.
Long one. Fine.
The challenge last evening, I have been writing it. There are about 10 words. Let me read it out to you. It's learn, travel, observe, skill yourself, deliver excellence, value your work, share knowledge, inspire others, pay your dues, be environmentally conscious and a responsible citizen.
Oh, great. Thank you. And Viraj, do we have any questions for the panelists?
Yes.
Viraj?
Yeah, I'm there.
Any questions? Do we have time for any questions?
So far,
we're going to see market flow.
A lot of people have spoken about Mr. Sanjay Puri. You're really inspiration for the youth. People have spoken for Mr. Baman. I think in specific.
Nothing specific, right?
No, nothing specific. I think a lot of people have spoken in general about the industry, thanking everybody for their views. So nothing specific to anybody. But yeah, a lot of people have said a hi. They've worked in your teams. A lot of people have worked in different Mr. Somani. A lot of people have worked in HSIL. They've kind of said hi to you. So yeah, so a lot of people have, but nothing specific.
Okay.
So great.
We have
it's
one
been-
question in the Q&A, which is
Yeah.
saying, at Sanjay, how do you keep yourself updated with latest trends and concepts of design?
Instagram?
What's the question?
No, it's on the question and answer.
It's on the Q&A.
How do you keep yourself updated with all the latest trends
And concepts of design.
and concepts of design?
This is coming from Hetvi Shah.
The
Sanjay.
question is to, the question is only to me.
Yeah.
Okay, there is one question. If anybody would like to take up, kindly speak on the future of real estate after this pandemic.
Yes.
Okay, so to keep yourself updated, up till now it was travel. That is the best way to keep updated. But now it has become these webinars. I mean, of course, Instagram, but so many of these webinars are happening. So many online programs are happening. Design, Arch Daily, Parametric Architecture are doing some amazing conversations, and all of those are something to learn from.
And are we attempting that one on real estate? That last question that was posed? I think we've had enough answers to something like that, right?
Okay, another question is a question towards Somani sir. The age where every company is now prioritizing customers and their demands. How do we excel with new businesses? What different can we do otherwise?
So can I answer that? The real estate, I think Mr. Hiran Nani is the best person to answer.
Yes.
So frankly, there's for most product categories, if you leave apart the COVID-19 vaccine, there's no shortage of products in most product categories. So when we, as a corporate, try to look into new opportunities, we always look at how we can differentiate from what is available in the market, how we can add more value to the customer, and how can we be more, from a technology point of view, how we can differentiate ourselves vis-a-vis what is available in the market. So I think if you are a Me Too product, the chances of your success for new product introduction is virtually zero today. Because for a Me Too product, the only way you can compete in the market is on price, and that's not the best way, because you can never be, and I'm convinced of this globally, you can never for a protracted period of time be the lowest cost supplier. Somebody else in India will cut your costs and be more competitive, or somebody globally will be cheaper than you. So the only way is to add value and have differentiation in the product. That's what our foundation is for new product introduction.
Great, great. Thank you. Do we have time to answer that last question? Can Surendra answer that last question?
So there's one question specific towards Surendra sir. So since he is talking, and what is the reason behind your success in urban planning?
Well, the success is really reading a lot about what works, and I'm basically a fan of new urbanism, which talks about there's lots of books on this subject. You can read on it, and it's something I passionately believe on it. Of course, there are different views and thoughts. People are opposing camps, but you have to select your own camp and then work on that direction. Work on what you feel in your heart is what is right, and you go on that track. And I think we have succeeded in that way. So I don't see any reason why I should not continue to pursue this line of thinking. And basically, it's all about cities where the pedestrian, the human being is the center, and not the private automobile. I mean, I'm just putting it very briefly, but then you have to go into the planning, how you place buildings on the street, how you create multi-use communities, how do you create how do you divide the greenery in different spots and intersperse it within the community and not concentrate it. How do you, for example, I still head the horticulture department in my company. I love to do it, because I feel there's so much innovation in horticulture, I mean in landscape, and so much one can do in it. So, you know, it encompasses everything, you know, the landscaping, the architectural design, the, you know, the community level, you know, creating that place where you walk and, you know, and see people. You know, what's the problem with Lutyens Delhi? You know, it's unsafe because it's just, you know, tree-lined streets with zooming cars, right? And it doesn't have the human character. It's built to impress people, to impress foreigners, but it's not built for the community. So, but it's a very large subject, and on, and we should have a separate discussion on that.
I'm sure. So I think thank you, ACETECH, for having this panel and you know, for actually allowing us to have all these positive discussions, because I think with, like I mentioned, with the entire pandemic going on and all the negative statistics coming in on a daily basis, I think it was important and necessary to, you know, think of all these positive stories and actually deliver all this positivity to all the people who have joined in. Thank you, Surendra, for joining us from London. Thank you, Mr. Mandiwala. It was great meeting you and really lovely to hear your story. Thank you, Mr. Somani. Nice of you to come in from Delhi, and you know, at the age I think that you've reached, what you've reached is fantastic. Thank you, Sanjay, because you've been in so many webinars. Thank you for squeezing this little bit of time in for us. Thank you, Nilab. Thank you, Santa. And thanks, Baman, who's, I think, already run away somewhere. Thank you, Sumit. And this has been the first webinar. I'm sure you're going to have many more interesting webinars, and we'll all be joining in soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Seema, and thank you all of you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.